Hello, I'm Corey. Welcome to the Healthy Families MIS video training series. During this video, we will explore the worker record. Only staff who are assigned an active caseload or supervise staff and perform observations will have a worker record created for them. The worker record is only accessible for those MIS users who have supervisor or data entry access. Let's take a look at the worker record. It is located under Settings, and as always, this is a test site, so all the data you will see is fake. This drop-down allows the user to see up to 100 worker records on this page, but this program only has 5 worker records, as noted here. The buttons on the top right are used for transferring a worker or to add a new worker, and we will go into more detail on both these options later in the video. Here we see a list of workers. Click the gray arrows to sort the columns alphabetically by first or last name, term date, username, or email address. The search box can be used to quickly access a specific worker record. Click the Edit button to open the record. The Details tab is the initial page we see after clicking Edit. Here we can see the demographic information for the worker. The address and phone number fields are both optional. The next 3 fields are vital. Only number 5, the supervision field, is required, but all 3 should be completed as they impact supervisions, reports, and user dashboards. The next tab is the job functions. The employment date is a required field. This is the date the staff person begins employment. The next 2 fields, full-time equivalent and hours per week, are also required. A list of all the job functions one could have while working for the program is listed under number 7. One or more of the following options must be marked to successfully submit the worker record: FSS, FRS, Supervisor, or Program Manager. The other selections are optional per the needs and the direction of the program. The initial start date is the day the worker begins the position. The start date is when the worker is fully trained and prepared to begin working in this role. For example, this person's date of employment is 4/1/22, but she was promoted to supervisor on 2/1/23, so that will be the initial start date. She was fully trained and ready to begin working as a supervisor on 5/1/23, so that is her start date. Just a little reminder that this start date must be prior to any event she performs in a supervisor role. The end date will terminate the worker in that specific role. So if this person is no longer working as an FRS effective 12/1/22, then her name will no longer appear in the drop-down boxes for referral or screen forms that occur after that termination date. And she will no longer require assessment observations or future required FRS trainings. Under the Experience tab, questions 8, 9, and 10 are required fields. Not entering any one of them will prevent the form from being successfully submitted. The Other Info tab is optional and can be entered per the discretion of the program manager. The Termination tab is next. The termination date can be entered if an employee is no longer working at the program or if an employee will be out for an extended period of time. This will be longer than 3 weeks. Entering the termination date will remove the need for weekly supervisions after the term date and will limit the number of required observations. When entering the termination date, at least one reason is required to apply the term date to the record. Once the termination has been successfully submitted, the MIS access for this worker will automatically be deactivated only if the username has been identified on the Details tab. If there are open cases assigned to the worker that is to be termed, the cases will have to be reassigned to other home visitors before the termination can be successfully submitted. You can reassign the cases by going to the Batch Reassignment option under Settings. This is only available to those MIS users who have a supervisor access. If for whatever reason you cannot reassign the cases right away, please submit a ticket to the IT team requesting that the MIS access be deactivated immediately for the term staff member. The last tab, Notes, is not a required field, but can be used to document any information that may pertain to this staff person. Remember, these worker records are viewable to anyone in your program that has a supervisor or data entry access, so please use discretion when documenting. Let's enter a worker form. Click the New Worker button on the first tab. Enter the name. Again, the address and phone number fields are optional. Click the Supervisor drop-down to see a list of active supervisors and select the person who will be supervising this staff person. The supervision day is the next field to be completed. The information entered in this field will determine how the regularly scheduled supervision report calculates this worker's supervisions. The next field to be entered is the username field. Entering the username will create a dashboard to appear on the worker's homepage. The username will only appear under this dropdown if an MIS account has been created for the staff person. Since this field is not required, you can always add it later if the MIS account has not been requested. But it is important that this field is completed because it allows access to the homepage dashboard and is directly connected to the worker's MIS access. When you are satisfied with the information entered on the Details tab, click the Job Function tab. Enter the start date of employment with the program. Tab over to the full-time equivalent field and enter the appropriate information. This field directly affects the allowed case weight for the worker. And then tab over to the hours to enter the total number of hours to be worked in a week's time. Next are the job functions. We reviewed these fields earlier, but once again, the initial start date will be the date the worker was hired for this specific role. It can be the same as the employment date if the worker was hired to be an FRS. But if the worker is promoted to supervisor a few years later, then that initial start date will be the date that they were promoted. The start date is the day that the worker is ready to begin the role. So this will be after core training, but prior to the first event. Move on to the Experience tab and enter the required fields. At this point, the form can be submitted. As usual with all MIS forms, any required fields that were not entered will appear on the first tab in red. The form cannot be successfully submitted without completing all the required fields. Let's take a look at the Transfer Worker option. The first thing to know about the worker transfer is that the worker can only be transferred from Healthy Families programs that have multiple sites, and only then if their worker record in the other program has been terminated. The second thing we need to know about transferring a worker from program to program is that their training resume comes with them. So, to avoid any missed trainings on reports, it is very important to electronically transfer the worker as opposed to entering a new worker record. And the third thing to know about the transfer worker option is that the employment date is the date they start at the new program. The initial start dates will be pre-filled for any role the worker performed at the previous program. Click the drop-down to see every active site in your Healthy Families program. Tab down or use your mouse to access the program where the worker was once employed. Every termed employee that has a worker record from the program will appear. You can use the search box to quickly identify the termed worker record, or you can sort by clicking these gray arrows. Once you have located the worker's name, click the Transfer button. This will automatically open your program's worker record. Enter the employment date as the date they will be starting at your program. There will be some fields that are pre-filled: the first and last name, email address, years of experience, and the initial start date of any job function that the worker had in the previous program. You will enter the start date as the day this person is ready to perform the role for which they were hired at your program. Once all the required fields have been entered, you can successfully submit the form. So that is the worker record. We hope this video was helpful. We appreciate your taking time to view this video, and it will be posted on our blog along with other training videos and training documents. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.